Hi everyone, today is garlic planting day and we are going to be planting a ton of cloves. I think this year we're going to do like 120 to 150 cloves. That's what we did last year and I think that's a good number for us. So first, the variety that we're going to be planting, I think it's all just going to be one variety and it's called Chesnok Red. It's one that we've planted for the last 2, maybe 3 years now, I can't really remember. But it's done really well for us every year, and it's a hardneck garlic. And for us, I think it stores pretty well, even though it is a hardneck. And typically, sources say that hardneck garlic only lasts for a few months. So here are the heads that I saved from our harvest from this summer. So I think I harvested these in June or July. So it was quite a few months now. Now it's like late October. So it's been a good like 4 or 5 months, and these heads of garlic still look really perfect. They're still really tight and not shriveled up. So originally I had set aside the largest heads of garlic because those will have the largest cloves, and the larger the cloves are, the more energy they have to produce the heads for next year. So I always set aside the biggest ones for any varieties I want to replant, and you can just save that as your own seed garlic so that you don't have to buy seed garlic every year. And I find that I also get better results because by saving the largest heads of our own harvest each year, every year it just gets a little bit bigger and better. So originally I was planning on doing 2 kinds of garlic. I usually try and do a hard neck and a soft neck, but for some reason the last 2 years, every time I try to buy a bag of soft neck seed garlic, it doesn't come out as soft neck. I'm not really sure why, but the last 2 years, the bags have just been mislabeled and I think I'm kind of just like giving up on them because this hard neck garlic does so well for me that I'm just going to stick with it. So that soft neck variety that I mentioned, it was labeled as California soft neck, but it definitely wasn't. And I saved some of the heads from our harvest because when we first harvested them, they looked great. They were really, really huge, like even bigger than our Chesnok Red. So here's like a Chesnok Red, and then here's one of the, I guess it's a mystery garlic because it's not a soft neck. You can tell that it has like the hard neck in the middle. And you can tell by this shriveled up head that they did not store very well at all. Like, if I open this up, it's just like powdered in there. It's completely like desiccated, and the birds are very loud today. Yeah, so this is not going to be plantable, and I saved a few more heads, and they look a little better than that first one that I showed you. I'm just going to open them up and see how they are. If we have some usable cloves, then I'll try and throw some of these in the ground, but I don't really have high hopes for them. This is the best looking one, and it's still, some of the cloves still feel soft, but if there are some hard ones, then I will try planting those because the heads did get really big, so maybe I'll just try planting them and using them right away next year. But yeah, mostly it's going to be Chesnok Red this year, and I'm totally okay with that because like I said, it's always done well for us. So with these heads, all we have to do is separate out the individual cloves, and that's what we're going to be planting today. So I'm going to start doing that. I'm just going to peel the outer layer of paper and then just separate out the cloves. This is a really big clove here. So here's a more normal size. But I'm not going to take out the inner layer of paper, just that outer one to separate out each of the cloves. And then we're going to plant the cloves like this. We're going to plant them with this root end in the ground and the pointy end facing up. So for these Chesnok Red garlic heads, I think we'll probably have like 10 to 12 cloves per head. We usually average about 10, I think. And I picked out 11 heads, so we'll definitely have more than 100. So I think that's going to be a good amount for us. And with hardneck garlic, you will generally have like one layer of really large cloves around it instead of like many layers of smaller cloves like soft neck garlic does, which is one reason why I really like hardneck garlic. It makes it really easy to work with when you're cooking because you don't have to peel as many cloves of garlic. And you can see these cloves are just really nice and big and healthy looking. They are not dried up at all. If I get any dried up ones, I'm not going to try and plant those because they'll just rot in the ground pretty much. Sometimes you will get like larger cloves and smaller ones, so around the outside you can have larger ones and then towards the inside you can have smaller ones. And like I said, the larger the clove is, the more energy it will have to make a really large head next year. So if you have like an abundance of seed garlic, you can always just pick out the outer layer of a bunch of different heads, and then those inner layers, you can just use them for cooking like you normally would if you don't want to like use up the space on smaller cloves of garlic. So maybe that's what I'll do. I'll have to see how many cloves I end up with. If I have too many, then I can just set aside the smaller ones for cooking. And just for reference, we are located in Virginia, zone 7A, and typically hardneck garlic does do a lot better if you're in a really cold climate. I think it's more cold hardy than softneck garlic is. Cold hardiness is not really an issue for us since it doesn't get that cold here in the winter. But if you live farther north where your climate is more extreme, that's something to take note of. Maybe hardneck garlic would be a better option for you to grow than softneck garlic. It is the end of October right now, and I think that's a pretty good time to plant garlic. We did just have our first frost, but you can pretty much plant your garlic, I think like any time from a month before your first frost to even like 2 months after, as long as your ground isn't frozen, especially if you're in a more like southern climate like we are. In the past, we've actually planted our garlic a lot earlier than this year. I think the first year we planted garlic, we did it as early as mid-September, and that is kind of early for us, but it still worked out really great. So I think garlic is really forgiving in terms of when you plant it, because it stays in the ground for so long that if you have a little bit less or extra time in the beginning, I don't think it's that big a deal. It might be different if you're in a really cold place where you don't have like a really long growing season, or if your ground does freeze really early. I don't really have a lot of experience with that, so I can't speak to that. But for us, I think we have a lot of wiggle room as to when we put our garlic cloves in the ground, which is really great because this year we are getting to it a little bit later than we typically do, but I actually think this is a perfect time for us. I just kind of get a little anxious sometimes and I want to get things in the ground as soon as they are able to go in. But this year we're a little busier, so we just haven't been able to get to it until today, and that's fine. It's a really nice, beautiful fall day, and we have had a few colder days, but today it's nice and warm, and I think the next week is going to be pretty warm as well. So we're enjoying some nice fall weather. As far as any bed or soil prep today, I think we're just going to amend really lightly with some granular fertilizer. Normally I would prefer to add a really nice layer of compost, but we don't have any right now and we don't really have time to go to the store. So we have a lot to do this week, so I think I'll just add a little bit of the granular fertilizer, and then come springtime when we will have a lot of compost around, I'll make sure to add a ton of that on top of the soil. And I think that's going to be fine because the garlic doesn't grow too much over the winter anyway. It will develop some roots, but it's not going to be growing like a ton above ground. And depending on when you plant it, it might not show any growth at all in the fall. Mine always has, I think because I tend to plant it kind of early, but I think that if you don't see anything, it's okay. Just wait till the spring and it might just take a little longer to pop up out of the ground. It'll stay in the ground all winter long, and usually I'm harvesting this variety of garlic, I think in June. Maybe one year it was even in May, so it was pretty early, and that's another reason I do like this variety of garlic. And I don't know, again, if it's just because I tend to plant earlier or if it's because of the variety, but I feel like it does mature a lot earlier than other varieties of garlic that I've tried, which is really nice because that time of year, like in the spring, I'm trying to like cram a lot of plants into the garden because all of the warm weather stuff like tomatoes and peppers, all those kinds of things, they are going into the garden, and I always wish I had more space. So being able to free up the bed of garlic when they're like just perfectly ready to harvest, when the other stuff is ready to go in, just works out really well. And because it's just like staying in the ground for like 6 months until you harvest it, it's a super easy crop. One of our favorite things to grow, and we use it a lot in cooking. Like pretty much every day I'm using multiple cloves of garlic, so it's really nice to be able to have homegrown garlic. And because we grow so much, I never have to feel like I need to skimp on garlic because we always have an abundance, so that's really nice. Okay, so this is all my Chesnok Red garlic. this big beautiful pile that smells so good. So I'm just gonna go through and make sure everything looks good. Any of the ones where the skin kind of came off like this one, I think I'm just gonna set those aside for cooking, because if the inner layer of skin is not covering them, they are prone to rotting. So I would rather just play it safe and not plant those, because then that will just take up space that another perfectly good clove be using. For now, I'm picking out the largest ones, and depending on how many I have, I might add some of the smaller to medium ones as well. Here are the finished Chesnok Red cloves. I ended up with over 100. I kind of lost count, but I think it was like 105. So I think that's going to be a good amount of that. I did end up grabbing 2 more heads to separate the cloves out of, because I wanted to definitely get over 100, and I was at like 84, I think, with the 11 heads that I pulled out, just because I also took out a lot of the cloves where I took the skins off or were a little smaller. So here are all the skins, and these are all the other cloves that I pulled out. So there were definitely still a lot more in there, but I just wanted to pick the very best ones. So now let's open up these heads and see how they look. So this is the first one that I'm not even going to try and open because it is clearly all rotted. But this is one of the ones that still feels okay. So we'll see if any of the cloves are good to plant, and then these will just be like our bonus ones. And if we don't get anything, that's okay, but you never know. It's always good to plant more than one variety in case something happens. Even though the other variety did do very well for us, you never know what's going to happen year to year. So it's kind of nice to hedge your bets and make sure you plant more than one. This one looks pretty good, actually. The cloves look not dried out. I accidentally took the skin off of that one. So you can see it's starting to go a little bit brown. Definitely not too bad. I think they'll still grow. So any of the ones where the skins stay on, I'll try and plant them. And these cloves really are very big. So here is my largest Chesnok Red one, and this is just like a normal one for the other head. So pretty comparable, very large cloves, and if we can get them to grow well and I use them right away, they'll be great for cooking. These ones have like a really nice purpley color to them too, which makes them really pretty. You can see how they're starting to go bad a little bit there. They're really hard to separate. So I got maybe like 5 or 6 off of that one head, and we'll see if the other ones have any good cloves on them. We finished separating out all the cloves. So again, we have about 105 of these, and then for the mystery garlic, we have, I think, like maybe like 20 to 25. So total, we should have 120 to 130 cloves. So I think that's going to be good for us as long as all of these do well. And this is the bed that we're going to be planting in. This is the bed where we had eggplants and peanuts in during the summer, and we harvested those a few weeks ago. We haven't amended or anything since, so we just have to like finish cleaning up. We still have some plant stalks that we need to pull out. I'm going to move over the drip irrigation, and then we are going to sprinkle in a little bit of garden tone, just add some nutrients for the winter, and then again we will amend more heavily with compost in the spring. I really did hit you. I'm so sorry. It got stuck to my glove. It got stuck to my glove. It got stuck to my glove.
You hit me a little, and then it was more, and then all of a sudden it was in the dirt.
It's gonna look like I did it on purpose, and I didn't. I never do that to you.
You really went for it.
I didn't mean to.
It's been so nice.
You're never nice.
I'll just throw them out.
Never nice.
Maybe. My instinct is to hit stuff.
We ended up planting all of the Chesnok Red and filling up this entire bed, and we ran out of space for the other variety, but we only have about 20 cloves of that one, so we're gonna do those in this bed. In this bed, we do have things that are still growing. We have bok choy there, some kale, and some new radishes that we just seeded in. But in the very front here, we had harvested a bunch of radishes, and that's pretty much empty now. We just have this one really big one that we'll just harvest today, and some other random ones that we'll pick. And then we'll just do the same thing, amend with some garden tone, and we'll just do like one line right along the front here, and that should be enough space for the rest of our cloves. Wow.
Wow.
It's a big one.
Oh, he's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a nice one. So I think we're done. It's a pretty easy task, but we're happy to have it done. Thanks for hanging out with us in the garden today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you again in the next one.
Fall days, brown eyes, roots in my apartment. And we grew, passed by, plans were always falling. I know you need out sometimes, head on the glass by traffic lights. Thoughts never felt so blind, so we take off in amazing dive. Driving circles, growing sick of the weather. Heather gray. Back when we were falling, I know you need out sometimes, head on the glass by traffic lights. Thoughts never felt so blind, so we take off in amazing dive. Driving circles.